Hey guys, it's Mark here from ETF Tracker. This is the ETF Tracker show and it's the interviews with experts segment. And in this episode, we are getting the academic view. So we've had quite a few different views already. We've had the exchanges, we've had advisors and robo-advisors and the ETF issuers and even market makers. So now it's time for the academic point of view to see what their thoughts are on the growth of ETFs, retail, trading behavior, and much more in the episode. See you there. Welcome back, everyone, and we're here with Angel Zhong of RMIT. And thank you very much for joining us, Angel.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Perfect. And look, we've asked you to be on this show, these interviews with experts, because we're trying to get all of these different range of opinions and voices from all parts of the ETF market. So we've got the exchanges themselves, we've got market makers, ETF issuers, and I wanted to get the academic point of view because we often see in finance, and people may have recognized you from being in the news and stuff, that kind of background there. So can we get into that a little bit? When did you first get involved in financial markets? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I would say that I grew up in a finance family.
Wow.
So my dad works in a bank, and my mom, well, she works in. So I'm from China. So my dad is a president of a bank. So yeah, and my mom works for the taxation bureau. So I mean, I grew up in a finance family. So I love finance, which is why I chose to study in finance. I did my undergrad at Monash, majoring in finance, and because I love finance so much, and I love doing research in finance, so which is why I continue this journey by doing an honors in finance, and then I ended up doing a PhD in finance. So that's me, the boring academic, in finance for so many years. Altogether, my time at Monash was like 9 years.
Wow.
So after from my undergrad, you can imagine undergrad, honors, and PhD. And then I joined RMIT after finishing my PhD as a lecturer, and then later I got promoted to a senior lecturer. So yes, so if you ask me when is my first time that I get involved with the financial market, I would say when I was born. But like seriously, is when I started. I would say when I started my PhD study in finance to get like a deeper understanding.
Oh, that's brilliant. Did you know when you were at uni and looking at those things, like people go to uni, they study, they want to get into industry, they want to do this or that. Like when did you know that you wanted to go really down the line of the educational side, the academic side of things, and not into industry?
I would say, maybe it's similar to everyone. Like when you go to the end of your undergrad study, I didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I was the same.
I was like, should I get a job outside? Is the job market okay now? Is it tough? I think I didn't really know what to do. But because at that time my academic results were pretty good, and I was invited to undertake an honors degree. So honors degree is more like research, a research pathway to PhD. So I got to learn how to do research in finance, and it really is what I wanted to do. I feel like that's what I really love instead of working in the industry. So that's why after the honors, I continue to do PhD, do research by pursuing study in PhD in finance.
Brilliant.
So So at the end of undergrad, I really didn't know what to do.
Yeah, I think you're not alone there. I'm sure that whatever ages are of the audience members that we've probably got a few that are in their studies at the moment, unfortunately, in lockdown likely. But so as you said, you're RMIT. A lot of our listeners are in Sydney, but we're growing that throughout Australia and hopefully globally. But with RMIT and that Masters of Finance kind of program, I've seen you've got a lot of kind of articles on Google Scholar. So you are pretty prolific in terms of the work that the research that you're doing in finance. But can you tell us a bit more about the type of research that you have been doing? It doesn't have to just be like, anything to do with ETFs, even though this is the ETF show, but just in general with finance, what are some of the pieces that you've worked on?
Yeah, so I would say I have three main research agenda. My first research agenda is asset pricing, empirical asset pricing with a particular focus on the Australian equity market. So for example, I would say that my work is actually the pioneering work of the French five-factor model in Australia.
Wow.
For example, I guess we all know those size, book to market, for example, profitability, investment, or the quality minus jump factor by the AQR. But those factors, if you read those papers, the way they constructed, those approaches are suitable for the US market, but they are not really suitable for the Australian market with a different market microstructure. So one of my, a series of my papers look into how we adapt the approaches for the Australian market by tweaking the approach. So that's one of my agenda, to look into what affects risk and return in Australian equity market. My second research agenda, which is very relevant to ETF, is I look into investor behavior. I compare the difference between retail versus institutional investors. So part of my research, which has attracted some media attention in the recent 12 months, is that I investigate the trading behavior of retail investors, or those Robinhood traders in the market. So, you know, especially like in the first 3 months of the lockdown last year, around the world, my research shows that there is a 50% increase in trading volume around the world.
Wow.
And in Australia, that is 66%. And that is when a lot of us started to get into the ETF market, which drives the boom in ETF in recent months that you've been talking about.
That's brilliant. So that's the second one. What's the third one?
The third one is that I look at climate financial risk. We all know how climate change affects our life. So in my third stream, I look into how we measure climate financial risk in the financial market. So, you know, there are two components in climate financial risk. One is the physical risk, which is like how these natural disasters such as bushfire affect asset prices. But there's another component which is pretty hard to quantify, which is transition risk, because, you know, with all these upcoming policies, taxation policies, asset volatility could be a factor. So developing some measures using machine learning to capture the uncertainty there. So these are, three streams of my research.
Well, you cover, so those three streams, that's pretty interesting. And the last one's really interesting as well. I mean, second and third, and definitely the first, like if people don't already know about the pharma French stuff, definitely something that you guys can investigate. But the idea around factors that can help people understand, or help research understand what is going on with various kind of assets. But the ETFs one's interesting. And the last one, just because of ESG, a lot of people are really interested in ESG, and we see a lot of ESG in thematic type investing. But just going back to the ETF space, the next question was going to be about what kind of research that you've done in there. But I guess you kind of mentioned a little bit with you saw that there was the rise of ETF investors given the lockdowns and stuff. But with that kind of like research, that retail versus institutional investing research, have you got some fun facts and figures about or some interesting insights if we dig deeper? Like we saw that there was a rise in retail investing, but what else did you kind of see? Did you dive deeper down into the types of people who were investing, or what's leading them to want to put their money into investing if they hadn't done so already?
Yeah, interestingly, I have recently just conducted a report. I've launched a report about how young investors navigate the uncertainty in COVID-19. So what we do is I team up with two colleagues at RMIT and Western Sydney University. So we actually conducted 5 focus group discussion with young investors below the age of 30 with less than 5 years of experience. So we asked a lot of interesting questions, in particular about ETF. So I will share some of their quotes. So in summary, what they said about ETF is that in general, they find that buying ETFs help them reduce their risk, avoid market volatility, and ETFs actually help them manage their emotions because, to the participant, they feel like buying ETF because it's perceived to be a safer approach.
Yeah.
So it is not like gambling or buying individual shares. So it actually make them less emotional, especially during the highly volatile market in COVID. So that's quite interesting.
Oh, definitely. That's some interesting behavior there.
Yeah. So they most of the participants they spoke very highly of the ETF options because that open up like new and accessible methods of trading. Especially with superhero, all these new digital platforms provide cheap or even free investment, or I mean, in terms of fees on ETF. So they feel safer. They feel that that gives them a peace of mind in terms of investing.
That's brilliant. And I guess that's the thing, like you don't want to go into something that's new, like investing, if you've never done it before, if you don't have something that can give you that peace of mind.
Yeah.
So that's really good. With regards to, the retail kind of traders and the rise of those types of people, what we've also seen is also the rise of the financial influencer or finfluencer, as some like to call it, or fintalker, whatever the names kind of are. And you were on TV recently talking about, there was a segment, I think, on ABC about finfluencers there. What are your thoughts on like the rise of that kind of industry where there's been a lot of what do we call it? Like we like that there's a people that are sharing that some good information. There's a lot of really great educational material, really explaining things in nice, simple ways. But at the same time, I've seen it, it's been advertised to me on Instagram and TikTok, a lot of people trying to get you to buy a certain type of Bitcoin or a certain type of cryptocurrency, or, trying to get you into riskier kind of trades there. What do you think about that darker, unregulated side of the influencer market?
Well, first, I would say there are pros and cons. Well, it's good that we have knowledge sharing, and this knowledge sharing actually encourages stock market participation. So you've seen how the number of investors rush into the share market. That's good because a healthy economy needs healthy and active stock market participation. That is exactly what we have in Australia.
Yeah.
Like 58% of Australians directly invest in the stock market. So that, I mean, we provide fund flows to the share to companies so that they can invest in good projects, which then boosts the growth in the economy. That's really good. But yes, as you said, there are dark sides. For example, but we need to understand why people love listening to influencers. This is also driven by the fact that obtaining proper financial advice is actually quite costly in Australia. But influencers, well, you check their Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, they're free.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why they're so popular. And I have to say, well, a lot of influencers, they do share their knowledge in an engaging and interesting manner.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why, yes, it's so appealing to especially young investors in the market. So these are the pros of influencer. The cons, well, I would say there are good influencers. There are bad influencers. There are dodgy ones. So, but if you don't really have, you don't have the level of financial literacy, it may be hard for you to find out who is sensible and who is not sensible. I think that's the problem. It's okay if you follow some sensible influencers, and if they are providing just generic knowledge sharing instead of a specific product description, product recommendation, because if they do that, like providing, for example, if in particular, if they receive money from a company to promote a particular stock or to promote a particular product, and even without even disclosing it, that would be a problem. It would be breaching the law, actually.
Oh, wow.
So because it would be like sort of running a business, an ongoing business, if you read the Corporations Act 2001. So I would say, well, if you love following influencers, that is okay, but you need to apply your common sense. For example, if someone is recommending like a super profitable investment strategy, you may need to think twice, because
Yeah,
why does someone share something so good with you for free? So you need to think about the vested interest there. Yeah, so there are pros and cons. So that is why maybe as regulatory bodies and some other government agencies should step up, not as the entire regulation, but maybe a good starting point would be to enhance the financial literacy in the market.
I agree with all those points. Like, there are good and bad to these things, and we definitely need to see help for the investors that maybe just don't know that they need help.
Mm-hmm.
But I hear it from many people that talk about, and it's not just within finance, but anywhere. If it sounds too good to be true, you really need to check it out a little bit more. So that's some great advice that you've got there. And then speaking of ETFs, you know, we've had an interesting month of August where it's the 20-year anniversary of ETFs first coming to Australia back in 2001. And it was only like 10 years before that, or 8 years before that, when the first ETF listed in the US in 1993. So the growth has been really interesting over that time. As you mentioned at the start, you know, there's been an influx of retail traders, but there's also been more products coming to the market, more providers of ETFs, and the whole kind of ecosystem has just grown. What are your thoughts on that growth? Do you see that continuing going forward, given where we are right now?
Yeah, I definitely see that this trend will continue, because even as part of the ASX investor study, the most recent one, I think around 20% of all investors plan to invest in ETF. Wow. And if you look at that proportion in the millennial investors, that's even greater. Another trend that I see in the ETF is about crypto ETF. I mean, we all heard about the talks about the launch of the first Australian crypto ETF. So I actually took that opportunity in my focus group discussion to ask the participants. So if the first crypto ETF is launching in Australia, are you interested? What's your guess, Mark? What do you think?
Resounding yes, I would say.
No, quite the opposite. They are not interested. Okay. Yeah, so it could be sample size bias, but for our focus group participants, they all said no. Most of them said no, because I think one of the comment make a really good point, which is that, you know, crypto is decentralized investment. But if you have an ETF that's linked to crypto, so that's what the participant said. If you have a crypto ETF, it is governed by the exchange. So it goes against the idea of decentralized investment. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. That's why they don't like, and that means they need to do more research into the benefits and the disadvantages of crypto ETF. That's why our participants decide to stay away from crypto ETF. Yeah, so majority of them actually they dislike the idea of a crypto ETF.
Wow, I never thought about that whole kind of, you know, because the like you said, it's all about decentralization. I never thought about people not wanting a crypto ETF because it is decentralized. Because that's really interesting that people said that. So
I would expect the participants to say yes.
Yeah. Or maybe it's the age.
To me, it sounds interesting.
I think it sounds interesting as well. I'd definitely be interested when a product comes out, whether it's you know, was it Vanguard or Van Eck and Monochrome is as well. Trying to put something out, Jeff, over there. But yeah, that's really interesting. What else are your kind of thoughts on growth? Do you see other you know, there's more of these thematic type ETFs? Do you see further growth in that kind of thing?
Yes, definitely. And in particular, I would say those green sustainable ETFs, they are definitely the market darlings I mean, now, not even now, or in the next few years, because we all know how climate change is affecting every single aspect of our life. And I would say that out of the young investors, we have a lot of them who want to contribute their part in making the society better. So I would say another growth area would be the green and sustainable ETFs.
Brilliant. Now, the thing that has been common throughout the talk today has been around, you've got this academic angle and view outside of the market, which is really interesting, I think, because you're not, tied to, well, we need to sell product or we need to promote this kind of thing. So that's really interesting. And look, it's great. We get a lot of different guests on here, and they all make up part of the ecosystem. And I think it's interesting to get your thoughts on like what, advice would be for investors as they need to, look out. What are the things they need to look out for if they're just coming in new to the market? From all of your observations, what you mentioned a couple of things, like they need to, just if things are too good to be true and whatnot. But what else would you say are things that people need to look for, or where do they look for this advice?
Yeah, no problem. So first, a few pieces of advice from an academic. So first, you've heard this so many times, I guess, as we teach in Finance 101, always diversify.
Yes.
I guess that's the truth, I think. And that is why ETF is so popular, because it helps you diversify, help retail investors with limited amount of capital to diversify. I think that drives the growth of ETF. So always diversify. Mm-hmm. So in terms of the searching finfluencers, as I said before, always think twice if someone is saying there's a super profitable product and I'm sharing the love with the society, because I just don't understand if they're so profitable. I would just grab the opportunity before it's arbitraged away. So always think twice if someone is selling a product hard. As with influencers, I would say check their digital footprint before you decide to follow that advice.
Great idea.
So check what this person has been saying. You may find that this person 2 months ago, he or she is saying A, but next he or she is saying the completely opposite side. If that's the case, you may need to be wary. And also, if someone is telling you that you can get rich quickly, that's the theme on TikTok videos, on those FinTalk videos. That how to become a millionaire overnight. How do you retire at the age of 35 as a billionaire? So, there's really no get rich quick scheme. Because I mean, it really needs time, patience to get rich, or not really get rich. I mean, to maintain a level of financial well-being. In particular, also, I mean, it's normal that we often read about success stories in investment online, but that is because according to behaviour finance, it's a tendency for people to tell others when they make money, but most people just keep quiet when they lose. That's why the internet is full of success stories. You don't really see a lot of stories about losses. So so be realistic about winning. So these are my 5 cents, I say.
No, that's brilliant, and those are some really great and interesting insights. And it's, even as myself, who's been in the market and I invest, like I still value these kinds of, so I'm not a beginner, but like I still do things like this, like take a grain of salt with some bits of advice or like types of investments, and look under the hood and do a bit of homework. So that's really valuable. If people are interested, we're going to include, like, for example, the Google Scholar page with some of your articles, because there might be some students or other analysts and people that are interested in looking into that kind of stuff. But if people are interested in following you, are you on LinkedIn? Are you on the socials or anything like that? Can they reach out?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. So you can just search my name and with my affiliation, RMIT. So I think you can easily find me there.
Perfect. Well, look, thank you very, very much for your time today. We really appreciate it. The audience does too. And we hope to chat again soon.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Mark.
Okay. Cheers. Well, that was another amazing episode, and we're always learning more from these. So if you're interested in any of the topics that we covered, then make sure to check out the chapters below if you're watching on YouTube. And there's also a set of links to some of the things that we had mentioned, such as the Google Scholar pages where you can see more of Angel's research, and also a couple of news articles where she's been featured. So make sure to check those out. Have a good day, happy investing, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Bye.